Breaking news tonight. A body found dismembered off US 60, just ID'd as a missing girl. Emily, just 14 years old. Yes, her dismembered body, a 14-year-old little girl, thrown off the side of the highway like she's trash. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us.
A teen girl last seen walking near an Arizona group home found dismembered over 100 miles away. Who murdered 14-year-old Emily Pike?
What happened to Emily? I know when you see a headline, dismembered, you stick on that, but there's so much more. Why did Emily go missing? How did Emily go missing? There's so much to this story. Of course, I want to know who murdered Emily Pike, just 14 years old. Do you remember what you were doing or what your daughter or son was doing at age 14? Imagine what these parents are going through. Emily Pike found dismembered and thrown on the side of the road, US 60. Listen.
To say that I miss you so much, and I really hope I'll try to see if he can come visit me next time.
Not recovered any kind of weapon. Cause of death is still under investigation by the ME's office. We're investigating those leads. None of those as of yet have pointed us to a definite suspect or person of interest. We believe that she was killed somewhere else, and then that is where she was dropped off.
Joining me is Lynn Shaw, founder and executive director of Lynn's Warriors, a nonprofit dedicated to stopping human trafficking, specifically among girls and women, and the exploitation of young girls. It's hard for me to imagine what Emily lived through before she was murdered and dismembered. And I want to point out, Lynn Shaw, that this little girl, 14 years old, we still haven't found her arms or hands. I wonder why. Could it be the killer's attempt to evade her being identified by not having her fingerprints available? I don't know, and I don't care. But what this child went through before she was murdered.
Well, let me tell you, Nancy, the hands were most likely cut off. So exactly as you said, it can't be traced back anything about her. But I have too many questions. This is the way my mind works. Now we've got some body parts in a bag. How come her mother wasn't told about this for 1 month? What is going on here?
Lynn Shaw, I was asking Allred Pike Jr. if this case had been ignored, Emily's murder unsolved, because Emily is Indigenous. What do you think?
We need to talk about the American crisis, which is women and girls in the Indigenous community. They are totally ignored. Thank goodness we are talking about it here today. How come no other media outlet has covered this story of this beautiful little 14-year-old? I want to talk about some stats. We have to. Until recently, tribal nations had their own kind of law enforcement. Thank goodness they are now working alongside the FBI and local law enforcement. We know that women and girls account for about 2.2% of all women and girls in the United States. And of that, they're about a little over 1% of the population. Can you imagine if we took the entire population of the United States, approximately, 340 million, and 1%, that'd be over 34 million or thereabouts of murdered and missing, people. So why don't we talk about the Indigenous community? We have a lot going on here. They also suffer. 1 in 10 cases are higher than other ethnicities of missing and murdered. Why aren't we covering this?
Lynn Shaw joining me, founder director, Lynn's Warriors, a nonprofit committed to ending trafficking and abuse on young girls and women. He's right. The dismemberment aspect of what was done to Emily compounds the fact that she was like nothing. She meant nothing to the killer.
I mean, absolutely. We are seeing this in our marginalized communities across the United States, that they are kind of amping everything up. This is so horrible. Monsters dismembering bodies and doing all of that. But I want to go back on something. We have to really get out. Thank goodness we're talking about this today, Nancy. We're putting it out there. We have to continually, as hard as it is, and for the Pike family, all these horrible things we're talking about, we have to put this out in the public. We have to put the visuals out. We have to keep talking about it. We have to have follow up, because that is what will matter. We'll leverage the internet for good and just put it all over the internet. But you know what? This
Lynn
little
Shaw,
girl,
you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. Mary Kim Titla joining us, Executive Director, Unity, United National Indian Tribal Youth, Inc. Mary Kim, I don't enjoy talking about the dismemberment of a 14-year-old girl, but my point is she has remained invisible, and even in death, when many bodies, I'll just give you an example of cult mom Lori Vallow, who is responsible for the death of her son and daughter. You should have seen the way the son was basically mummified. He was hermetically sealed. He was treated with great care, the way that his body was disposed. That doesn't negate the fact that he was murdered along with his sister, Tylee. But here, the way Emily's treated even in death, it's shocking to my system that a little 14-year-old girl will be treated this way. And people aren't screaming from the rooftops. This child was dismembered. Even in death, she was brutalized.
It's shocking and heartbreaking, and it makes me very angry. It makes a lot of people very angry and upset. Indigenous women have long been the targets of hatred and violence. They say the underlying factors are there of poverty and homelessness, but you also have to look at the historical factors of racism, sexism, and the legacy of imperialism and colonization. So this is not the first time it's happened, unfortunately. As I've mentioned, my relatives have gone missing and murdered. And I recently learned that an extended relative has been missing since last summer. So it is heartbreaking, heart-wrenching. And our people are not standing by any longer. They're taking action upon themselves. They're holding vigils. They're marching. They're at the state capitol. They're at the offices of our congressional representatives. We're speaking out because something must be done. We don't want to see this happen again.
When the group home manager who filed the report, Emily's roommate tells AZ Family that based on where her remains were found, just off US 60 heading northeast, she thinks Emily was just trying to go home. The roommate believes Emily was trying to hitchhike back to see her parents, and she got picked up by the wrong person.
Susan Hendricks joining me, an incredible investigative reporter and author. Susan, is that the working theory? And how much do you believe that the high rates of unsolved murders and missings amongst our American Indians, the Indigenous, has to do with the fact that they don't have any help from local law enforcement or from the feds? The feds do not govern U.S. tribal territories. They have no jurisdiction there. It's up to the tribal police to solve all these cases, and it's not happening.
Absolutely. And we heard from Emily's uncle just say, look, a task force is finally formed, so they'll be working together. But how about this, Nancy? The Indigenous community, young and old, are not included in Amber Alerts in Arizona. So lawmakers are working to fight this. There's a bill right now, 2281. It's passed the House, waiting on Senate. So yes, they are invisible.
Oh my stars! They're not part of the Amber Alert system? Is that what you just said?
No, not in Arizona.
Oh. We're learning more. Listen to what Emily's mom says.
The mother of Emily Pike tells a local TV station that authorities told her they have 3 suspects in the disappearance and murder of her daughter, but that's not what they're saying in public. According to the Gila County Sheriff's Office, no suspects or persons of interest have been identified in her case. At this point, the cause and manner of death are still pending, according to the Pinal County Medical Examiner's Office, which investigates deaths in Gila County.
Alred Pike Jr., is that true? We're just hearing there's a suggestion that there are 3 POIs, persons of interest?
That was at the beginning of the after her body was found, but just recently we found out that the investigator said they didn't have anybody, no suspects or anything, no leads.
What investigator is this? What Ellie are you talking to?
The Gila County.
Gila County. Susan Hendricks, aren't the FBI involved now?
Absolutely, FBI is involved and they're part of that task force. But in doing research on this, learning about who Emily was, also learning about all the law enforcement agencies, they're not saying much. And it seems like the communication, obviously, there's a lack thereof.
You know, I'm very interested. Mary Kim Titla joining us. Another little girl, a teen girl, Veronica Cruz, is missing from the same home. I haven't heard about her either.
It's very sad, and I am very troubled by that news. It's an alarming statistic when you look at the ages of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. We're talking about young girls, and so many of them are missing. Why aren't we hearing more about this? I'm just as outraged as everyone else. It makes me sad. It makes me mad. Murder is the 3rd leading cause of death of Indigenous women. There are people who don't know this. It's so important to educate everyone and to create awareness. That's why you're seeing these marches. That's why you're seeing people speaking out. You're seeing murals, this beautiful mural that was created on the reservation right by a major highway. So people who drive by can see Emily's photo and see that we care. We care deeply about what's happening in our communities. And we don't want this to happen over and over again, but it is happening. Why are our girls going missing? Why aren't we doing more about it? It's at all levels of government, and there's layers and layers of underlying factors that we start to peel away. And so we do have to address those layers of poverty and homelessness, but we have to work on this together. So we are asking for everyone's help to meet with people, to meet with the Indigenous communities, to figure out how we can address this better so we don't see another girl go missing.
To Lynn Shaw, my longtime friend and colleague, who I first met as we investigated the case of another little girl missing from a home, Serenity Denard. Lynn, everything that you, Mary Kim, Mr. Pike, Chris McDonough, Dr. Coyne, Susan Hendricks have said is all true. But let me ask you, what are we going to do?
We're going to do several things. It starts with right here today. We are talking about it. We are raising the awareness. That is the biggest thing we can do with the public, get everybody on board and give them some resources and visuals to share, whether it's in real time, whether it's on their social media platforms. Number 2, we have to go back. You know what? I'm not hearing in any of this discussion. Did little Emily have a digital footprint? Did she have a phone? Did she have a laptop? We're not hearing anything about that. How was she going out to meet supposedly her boy, this boy she knew from guitar classes or something like that? I'm hearing nothing about a digital footprint. And number 3, the biggest thing I will sit here and scream about, and we have seen these stories, Nancy, over and over again. What does it take? We cannot have children walking away, missing, ending up like Emily. Bless her little soul, in garbage bags. Everybody should be out screaming in the middle of Times Square about this. We will not accept this, and we have to create change.